Hi everyone, it's Sayla here. Welcome to my art journey. Following last week's trip to the National Museum of Scotland, where I found loads of inspiration, I started there and then a little painting about wallpaper that I found extremely inspiring. But I liked it so much that I have decided to have a go at it into a slightly larger scale onto my sketchbook. So I'm going to be using some watercolors and fine liners, and I'm going to be recreating a bee with some pretty leaves. So if that interests you, let's get painting. All right, so this is the end of last week's videos painting, and here I'm just showing you the picture that I took at the museum of the inspiration. I'm just really focusing on the general overall shapes. I never do copy stroke for stroke because it would be just too stressful. So I'm just going around the bee, just sketching some leaves at random. I do use a little bit of inspiration from the picture, but as you will see throughout, I am just doing my own thing, my own version. I wish I knew who had done this design so I could credit them, but I actually don't. But if by any chance you end up watching my video, thank you so much. This is absolutely stunning. I absolutely love the colors, and the way that the leaves are combined with the bumblebee and the ink details. It just called so much my attention that I had to have a go at it. And whilst I was in the museum, the lighting was quite poor, so I wouldn't have really enjoyed doing the painting the way that I wanted. So I just did the smaller version, so you could kind of see the pattern, and it's actually nice as a pattern in the smaller version. But I did wanted to see the bigger painting. I thought about going straight with the fine liners, which I probably would have managed, but I did wanted to make sure that the composition looked good before I went and committed myself to the lines. As you can see, erasing is always in order. I'm using a kneaded eraser which doesn't leave any residue, and it's able to lift up quite well the graphite from the pencil. I didn't spend a lot of time in the drawing because I think the composition speaks for itself. I found the drawing extremely easy, to be honest. Obviously, this is sped up, but I didn't spend a lot of time. I think I spent probably less than 10 minutes, and there was some erasing, but not a lot. So here I'm gonna start using my fine liner. At the very start is really quite simple. I'm just going around outlining everything, which is quite relaxing actually, once you've already done all the work. I'm quite surprised as to how I was able to recreate the symmetry of the wings, to be honest. So here I start to look at the different parts of the bee, and I'm just adding some shadows, just to following the shape of the kind of rounded shape of the, I don't know if it's the head of the bee or not, but kind of the top section. I'm doing the lines so that you can definitely see that it's rounded and it's not completely flat, just to give it some texture as well. These Micron fine liners are waterproof, so there's absolutely no problem on going on to the with watercolor afterwards. I did left it for a little bit to dry, just because I felt more comfortable. I think in the past I've used the watercolor straight after, and there's been a little bit of smudging, which it wouldn't be a big issue, to be honest, because it just recreates a bit more of a watery shadow, if you like. But I just decided to wait before I added the watercolor. And another thing that I have done in the past is to do some watercolor and then go on with the fine liners. But these fine liners in particular, with the paper that I had, don't seem to really work that well. So I have learned that from user error, I suppose, and I think it's better to do the ink first, let it dry properly, and then go in with the watercolor. I mean, when I say let it dry, I meant 5 minutes, because it really doesn't take that long to dry. But yeah, just a little tip. And maybe if the paper wasn't rough, well, this is cold press paper. Perhaps if it was hot press, it would be easier to go on with the fine liner on top of the watercolor, but I don't really have or work with hot press paper, therefore it becomes a little bit more difficult. So yeah, because you have the watercolor plus the actual texture. So yeah. And now here I'm just gonna start going around the leaves with the right one. Again, just following the work that I have already done. So this part was very, very easy. I bought a lot of fine liners before Inktober, just because I like colorful things, so I thought that by having lots of fine liners it would be more colorful. But I have to say, there is something very, very pretty about a monochromatic drawing with a black pen. I do see the beauty in it, and the color black isn't something that it's around me in life much. I always have colorful clothes, so yeah, but yeah, I do like it. It's funny that. And I had the reference photo right next to me just to see what kind of textures there was on the picture, but I didn't really follow a lot of it. And actually, as the video was taking a little bit long, I did add some textures at the end, but I didn't record that. But you will see it once I start putting the watercolor, all the other textures that I have added. Because at the minute, all you can see is me highlighting everything with a fine liner. I did make the veins of the leaves the same way that they were in the photo. They were kind of like double. I like that a lot, so I just did it again. So just kind of following some of the details, but not very strictly. I find quite relaxing to use the fine liners, because once you put a line down on the paper, there's no going back. So from that, I always try to sort of correct things, but by adding more shading and stuff, but using my mistakes, if you like. And I find that there's always nice results at the end. I did find that there was still some pencil underneath, so I just went with my kneaded eraser to try and remove that as much as possible, because once you start putting the watercolors, then you can't remove any pencil marks. Here I'm just mixing a dark, rich mixture of red with the pyrrole and whatever I had in the palette, but it's quite watery, so it's not. It's very light, basically. And I did this completely random, just however I felt like it. It was actually a very relaxing painting to do, because I found it extremely easy, as well as just relaxing, mixing the colors. And once I had all the lines done, it was very simple to just go in and fill in all of it. Just trying to find some balance between each side, just so that it wasn't one side had more of the orangey and than red or whatever, just finding that. So my color palette here is made of, let me think, it's Hansa Yellow Light, is it? No, it's New Gamboge, that's right. It's the warmer yellow. Then I have Pyrrole Scarlet. I'm sure I had a little bit of Chronacaron Rose leftovers in the palette. And then I used towards the end a little bit of my granulating purple from Casart. And some browns as well, sepia and burnt sienna, mixed in with my blue. I always have on my palette a whale which has like a gray mixture, but it can be used as a kind of black. So basically I mix, depends how I feel, I mix indigo and sepia, or French ultramarine and sepia, and that always lives in my palette. It's always ready to go. So usually I will start reactivating that, adding a little bit more of whatever color I feel like I need. And that's what I did in this video. So I'm also using some yellow ochre in the Bumblebee. I did some of my lemon yellow and then added some of the yellow ochre, and it kind of makes it look a little bit like more like a golden color. And so in here I'm just applying that brown color, so it was quite blue, so I added some of the sepia and the burnt sienna, and then just loads of water, and it makes it nice and runny. And because I had already done some shading, even if I don't really add more of a thicker consistency of the paint, the section where it's closer to the bee will be naturally dark, but I did go back in a little bit just to add that kind of shading with the watercolor as well as the lines that I had previously done. And I really, really liked the final result with the brown and yellow. I don't know what was it of this that I was so surprised that I would like the final combination of colors, but I really, really did. And so here I start to, what one could call, mess up the painting, because I'm literally doing circles and then pretending to make the paint to drip. And my partner said, "Oh, was that an accident?" And I was like, no, I meant to do that. I think one of the reasons why I enjoy going to the museum, or just basically looking in the outside world to find inspiration is that sometimes you might not think of a color palette. You might not think that some colors would work together, and then you see them in a composition and all of a sudden it just makes sense. And I always feel like, oh, why did I not think about that? And this type of composition in general, I find that it was, yeah, very inspiring. And I think in the future I might do some other insects with some leaves and just different color combinations. It was truly an inspiration to find this. So here I start to get into the painted areas, which to me, I felt like I was ruining the painting, but I do think it came out really well. Just using different colors, different versions of the red, just adding more of a purple, a little bit of brown here and there, just total random mixtures by using what I had in the palette and adding a little bit of this, a little bit of that. That's why I found it extremely freeing. And a bit more messing up. I had added the purple in here, which when it dries up is really cool because you can see the granulation of the purple. Anytime you add a granulating color to a mixture, you will make the whole mixture granulating. And I'm tilting the paper just because I felt like the paint would be a little bit more runny that way, but it didn't really make a massive difference. But it was fun. It was fun to play and see. So this is the final spread inspired by my trip to the museum. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, give me a like, a comment, and tell me what you're thinking about these paintings. And I'll see you next week.